Servus Leute, willkommen zu einem neuen Video hier auf dem Kanal Austria Arms. Wir haben heute einen speziellen Gast bei uns und zwar Jimmy Cannon.
Hey, how you doing?
26 Jahre US Army Dienstzeit und 20 Jahre davon US Army Special Forces Green Beret, also einiges an Erfahrung. Und in diesem speziellen Video schauen wir uns sein Do-it-all-Rifle-Setup an, aus der Sicht eines ehemaligen Behördenangehörigen. Es wird sich auf jeden Fall auszahlen, dieses Video komplett durchzuschauen, weil wir mit dem Jimmy hier jedes Anbauteil besprechen, warum es so angebaut ist, warum es genau die Position hat, was der Zweck ist und. Und da ist viel Insiderwissen drin aus der Erfahrung eines Ex-Special Forces und darauf könnt ihr euch jetzt freuen. So Jimmy, thank you for your time.
Absolutely,
I'm really
man.
looking forward to that video. So let's start with that gun. What do we have here?
This is the Geissele Super Duty, but I call it the Green Bean. All right, homage to Green Beret, obviously. It's an 11.5 inch. It's the Super Duty, so it has, you know, a lot of the premier parts in it, and it's a lot of the parts that you would buy to put on a normal AR once you get it. But in the future, this will be replaced with a Noveski that's coming. That'll be another video coming at you guys. First and foremost, this is the fighting rifle. This is the end-all, be-all. But also what I mean by that, it's a contingent-based rifle. If anything happens, there's like a backup to the backup, right? And there's a whole reason why this rifle is set up the way it is, and we can go through that in detail.
Absolutely.
But I want to be able to operate when Murphy strikes. Murphy's that guy that jumps up and makes everything very difficult.
So,
but back up to the backup.
So the green bean against...
For the green bean.
Green bean or the bean?
Green bean, like a green bean. You know, like what do you say that? How do you call it in German?
Bohne.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought green bean like the British
So
sniper
bean
rifles.
is like, we also call like green berets like green beans. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, also hier haben wir eine 11,5 Zoll Geissele Super Duty und wie Jimmy vorhin gesagt hat, dass eben ein Gewehrsetup speziell dafür ausgelegt ist, um auf jegliche Eventualitäten reagieren zu können. Murphy's Law, quasi was schief gehen kann, geht schief. Das Gewehr ist jetzt hier von dieser Ausstattung so zusammengestellt, dass man eben auf solche Eventualitäten gut reagieren kann aus der Sicht eines Behördenanwenders. Also das ist jetzt quasi wirklich ein, wenn man es jetzt so sagen will, Fighting Rifle. Das bedeutet bis 300 Meter effektiv wirken und eben hier 11,5 Zoll. Mit dem Jimmy gehen wir gemeinsam jetzt hier von vorne bis hinten jeglichen Anbauteil durch und erklären euch in dem Video warum und weshalb.
Bear with us. A lot of information coming at you.
That's right. Why did you choose this barrel length?
Well, like I said before, you know, 300 meters and in, I don't need a crazy long barrel. It is chambered in 5.56, Y556. That's a very, you know, pretty common round to get for the most part. But 11.5 inches, that is just that sweet spot to where you can maximize the length of the barrel without getting too long. And for 300 meters, 5.56, you know, you're talking A-zone hits all day long. Because, you know, fighting rifle, you have to be able to, like, straight up fight with it. Crawl in a window, you know, like I said, getting in and out of cars, crawling down into something, you know, maybe it's a rescue thing, and this turns into a search tool rather than a violent tool. It's just that's the sweet spot, especially when you start throwing those suppressors on. Because there is a point where they get too long, and it's just unbearable, man.
Ihr habt es gehört, 11,5 Zoll, einfach weil diese Lauflänge bis 300 Meter eben mehr oder weniger alles abdeckt und weil eben Jimmy auch gesagt hat, unter dem Begriff Fighting Rifle, weil wir ja vorher schon erwähnt haben, es geht jetzt hier um ein behördliches Setup, deshalb auch der Name Fighting Rifle, eine möglichst universell einsetzbare Gesamtlänge und mit 11,5 Zoll kommt man halt auch super zurecht, wenn man jetzt speziell auch Schalldämpfer montiert, dass die Waffe dann doch länger wird und die Waffe jetzt aber im Gesamten nicht zu lang wird. Deshalb 11,5 Zoll für den Jimmy. Based on your experience during your service time, did you use suppressors often? Was it mandatory sometimes? Why a suppressor?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, there's pros and cons with everything. It doesn't make the gun absolutely quiet. You know, some people think it's just, you know, you put it on and you can't hear. That is not the case at all. But however, when you have suppressors on and you're working in crowds of people and you're trying to like yell at people or tell them to do something to be compliant or whatever, And say, for instance, you start firing off a couple rounds and there was no suppressor on it, well, people are just going to stare at you. They have no idea what you're saying. So that's one event, where suppressors will help you, right? And then also, let's just say maybe you're reacting to something, you don't have enough time to get Hearing Pro on or something. It's definitely a great way to mitigate that a little bit. Other things, from a distance, if someone is firing this rifle with a suppressor on it, it's very confusing to where it's hard to pinpoint where the actual fire is coming from, because it's just the way it echoes and reverberates, as that round's traveling. But on the con side, some of these things, they weigh a lot. And try holding that up, getting on the range all day, just doing some up drills and stuff like that. They got some weight to them. But, if it's heavy and it's kicking your butt, just get in the gym a little bit more often. I'll tell you what, the other thing, though, is they do get really hot. And if you're working with a dog or something like that, and you got the rifle down at your side and the dog's running around, dog gets burnt, stuff like that. So that's why, guys came out with the suppressor covers. Yeah.
Also die Verwendung von Schalldämpfer eben speziell behördlich natürlich auch den Hintergrund, dass man besser miteinander kommunizieren kann. Wenn man eben schießt, ist besser wie kein Schalldämpfer, speziell auch wenn es jetzt bei einer schnellen Reaktion ohne Gehörschutz passiert, dass man schießen muss, ist das mit Schalldämpfer definitiv besser. Auch eben, wie vorhin schon gesagt, kommunizieren im Team. Und natürlich auch aus der Sicht jetzt von Spezialeinsatzkräften, Schalldämpfer sind halt im freien Gelände schwerer zu identifizieren, wenn sie geschossen werden. Deshalb natürlich auch für die gegnerische Partei schwieriger herauszufinden, von wo die Schüsse kommen. Natürlich ein Nachteil auch die Hitzeentwicklung bei Dämpfern. Speziell wenn man viel schießt, wird der schnell heiß. Und das kann ohne Schalldämpfercover dazu führen, dass man sich oder andere Dinge, wie vorhin auch gesagt, einen Hund, einen Diensthund verletzt, wenn der jetzt halt auf Kniehöhe rumrennt und der Dämpfer bei abgesenkter Waffe da in der Position irgendwo ist. Also muss man dann halt aufpassen.
Another con, something to think about, when you are shooting with suppressors and you take them off, your ballistics change. So that's something to keep in mind of. So know your holdovers and stuff like that. Obviously at shorter distances, it doesn't really matter, but these 300-meter shots, it does make a difference. Another thing too, when you're shooting with suppressors all day, you're going to get super dirty.
Especially with a DI gun.
Oh, absolutely. It's a nightmare. And all the gases that get trapped, all that stuff comes back up in your face. And yeah, it's tit for tat, but if I'm doing long range days, I take it off. One, to kind of save it a little bit, because the old Surefire SOCOMs that we used to shoot, you got to be careful with them, because you start sending a lot of rounds. And even the suppressors before that, the old Knights Armament ones, you send a lot of rounds through that. After a while, the baffles get bad and stuff. So I'll tell you, the technology in a lot of these suppressors is getting much better, though. They're getting lighter and very durable, and you can put a lot more rounds there before they start heating up.
Yeah, especially also these new back pressure technologies.
Absolutely.
Which are evolving.
Yep, 100%. If I'm not running a suppressor, like I said, it's off. The other thing I'll use too is a blast jacket. And what I like about the blast jacket, especially when you're doing CQB or shooting in and around somebody, well, I don't know if you've ever shot a Surefire war comp right next to someone, but you'll make the guy, you'll make him angry really quick. So these just kind of redirect everything forward. And another thing it helps with is a lot of guys with the flashlights that are right around the muzzle area, the lenses get burnt and stuff like that. So this helps with that. But a trick for that a lot of people don't know is you just put some chapstick on the edge of the lens. That way you can just wipe it off when you're done.
Okay. Ja. Nice. Auch ein weiterer Aspekt, den man beachten sollte bei der Verwendung von Schalldämpfern, ist, wenn man ihn abmontiert und anmontiert, dass man natürlich eine Treffpunktverlagerung hat. Vielleicht nicht im Nahbereich, aber doch auf Entfernungen. Und da sollte man definitiv seine Holdovers wissen. Auch, dass die Verwendung von Schalldämpfern, speziell auch Direct Impingement Waffen, recht schnell verdrecken lässt. Also da kommt ziemlich viel auch Gasrückstau zustande, speziell bei Blendendämpfern. Deshalb die Waffe wird sicher schneller dreckig und dementsprechend auch schneller abgenutzt sein. Deshalb sollte man bei der Verwendung von Schalldämpfern die Waffe natürlich auch öfter reinigen. Und nach einer gewissen Schussanzahl kann so ein Schalldämpfer auch ziemlich schnell voll werden mit diversesten Sachen. Und da kann es natürlich auch passieren, wenn man wirklich viel Schalldämpfer schießt, speziell bei so Halb- oder auch behördlich Vollautomaten, dass die Dämpfer dann richtig schnell verbraucht werden. Wenn Jimmy keinen Dämpfer verwendet, dann hat er so einen Blastdeflektor. Das ist quasi kein Dämpfer an sich, aber zumindest ein gewisser Mantel, der jetzt diese ganzen Mündungsgase und den ganzen Druck nach vorne hinaus drückt. Und das ist speziell auch bei der Verwendung von Kompensatoren indoor ganz praktisch. Und in dem Fall von der Taschenlampe verschmaucht die Lampenlinse auch nicht so schnell. Und das wäre jetzt auch so eine Sache, die man verwenden kann, wenn man jetzt nicht unbedingt einen Dämpfer verwenden will, funktioniert sowas, beziehungsweise auch interessant bei der Verwendung von FX-Munition. Talking about the suppressor, I think we covered most of the things.
Yeah.
Mounting wise, there are different ways to mount the suppressor, either
Absolutely.
direct on the tread or on the muzzle.
Yes.
Flash hider, muzzle brake, what's your preference based on your experience?
I do want to add this real quick. When you are mounting the suppressor, be very mindful of, you have to make sure you get it fully seated, because a lot of people, they don't, they'll take it just in a couple clicks. But if you don't take it all the way down, if there's any like separation between that suppressor and that barrel, that's gas is leaking out of there, and that will affect the ballistics.
Or in the worst case, the suppressor goes off. And
absolutely.
You lose it. Yeah.
And as far as like actual muzzle device yourself, I think on this one is the Acron.
The flash hider.
It's a flash hider, and I was always a big favor of the Surefire War Comp, but you start shooting right next to people, they do not like you as much. And then they did like the Surefire flash hider and the War Comp combined. It was kind of like a hybrid one, but I would always prefer over the a flash hider rather than a war comp, because a lot of guys go for those war comps or something to help with the recoil to keep it level. But I'd always favor flash.
Flash,
because flash gives you away. And under NVGs, it's if you got a big flashy muzzle, and if your nods aren't auto gated, it's a pain in the butt to deal with.
It also probably depends on the purpose of the rifle. Like for competition shooting, a compensator makes sense.
100%.
For tactical application, probably more the flash hider.
Ja.
Ihr habt die Möglichkeit, den Dämpfer zu montieren, oft auf den Mündungsstücken oder teilweise auch direkt auf dem Lauf. Im Fall von Jimmy haben wir es hier auf dem Mündungsstück von Acheron. Das ist auch ein Acheron-Schalldämpfer und ein Flash hider in dem Fall. Beim Flash hider hat man halt den Vorteil, dass dieser Mündungsblitz unterdrückt wird. Es gibt Kompensatoren auch, aber die sind halt speziell auch indoor nicht so angenehm zum Schießen und geht dann schon auch in die Richtung sportlich. Ist natürlich auch Geschmackssache. Im Fall von Jimmy haben wir Flash-Hider. Lasers and other attachments like the flashlights. Why do you have to have a laser on the gun or the flashlight? What makes sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I said, it's supposed to be the end-all, be-all gun, and it's also very contingency-based. And people are probably wondering what I mean by contingency. Well, it's Murphy. I don't know if we've heard of Murphy before, but any problem any problem that gets thrown at you, I want to be able to solve it. When we start talking about like white lights and lasers and even IR light as well, it's not just like a tool to use during the process of firing the weapon at the opponent. It's also things that you can use for signaling, communicating with other things or whatever. So it's a multi-tool the way I look at it. So for the laser, this is the D-ball. This is the A3, and what I like about it, the Viz and the IR capabilities. You can have the floodlight as well, almost use it as a search. I do really like the Viz override, and what that is for the folks out there that haven't heard of that. So if I'm in an IR situation, I'm using IR, but all of a sudden, a non-combatant jumps in, and I need to communicate to them, right? And do the predator thing, and basically go right to a visible laser while the IR laser mode is selected. I can override that with simply by the press of a button. So that's basically me solving a Murphy problem really quickly with just a press of a button. And then the same thing with the white light. And there is a reason why I have it on the left side as a right-handed shooter as opposed to the right side.
Yeah, that's also a thing I wanted to ask you about wiring, all these cable management thing, but just for the audience to translate what I just heard from you. Also Laser und Lampen bei solchen Waffen sind halt auch deshalb drauf, weil er auch gemeint hat, dass dieses Gewehr quasi ein Multitool ist, um jegliche Art von Problemen Herr zu werden. So eine Sache, die natürlich auch sein kann, ist, dass gewisse Dinge auch für die Kommunikation und Signale verwendet werden, so wie eine Taschenlampe oder auch beim Laser. Und das ist ein Infrarotzielleser von Steiner und da gibt es neben der Infrarotfunktion auch einen sichtbaren Laser. Was der jetzt kann, ist diesen Laser von Infrarot auf sichtbar zu übersteuern, also diesen Visible Override. Bei dem Laser grundsätzlich hat man gewisse Settings, die eingestellt sind und wenn man jetzt bei anderen Lasern im Infrarotbereich seinen Modus drin hat, müsste man da wahrscheinlich diesen Hebel drehen und das wieder umstellen auf sichtbar. Und bei dem Visible Override muss man einfach einen Knopf drücken und dann wird, egal welche Einstellung jetzt gerade eingestellt ist, diese mit diesem Visible Override übersteuert und dadurch kann man sofort mit einem sichtbaren Laser zielen. Und im Falle von Jimmy, wie er vorhin schon erklärt hat, kann das natürlich hilfreich sein, wenn da jetzt zum Beispiel Leute, die unbeteiligt sind, dass man die halt irgendwie auf sich aufmerksam macht, dass da was eben in Gang ist. Und deshalb im Visible Override hier aus der Sicht eines behördlichen Anwenders.
Yeah.
Talking about wiring and cable management in general.
Absolutely.
Do you like these remote switches or do you prefer the direct click index?
So in all honesty, the switches is more of a comfort item because it allows you to put your hand, exactly where you want it on the rifle. But if I was to pick directly pushing a button as opposed to a switch, I always go with the button because anything can happen to a cable. It can break, it can fray. That's why the cable management is very, very important. So you have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, zip ties and everything, and really route those wires correctly. And the problem is with a lot of these switches, it's a standard length in which the switches come, so you have to deal with that, all right? I kind of look at best of both ways, right? So comfort item, and it's just more ergonomically when I grab the rifle and I lay my hand on it, it's just more easy to manipulate. But however, when I set it up, I can also reach these. So if my switch goes down, I can also just hit the actual pressure pad itself. Same with the light. And I can do that. Not everybody always thinks of it with their left hand, but you always got to think dynamic gunfighter, right? Being a dynamic gunfighter. So when you become right-handed fire becomes a left-handed fire, can I reach it with my other hand as well when I change it over to the other side? So that's extremely important.
Also die Verwendung von Kabelschaltern und Ähnlichem ist natürlich in einer gewissen Weise komfortabel zu verwenden, wenn man seine Knöpfe so positioniert, dass das halt immer schön da ist, wo die Hand gerade ist, wenn die Waffe wirklich in einer Normalposition geschossen wird. Man kann halt schön bedienen. Aber es ist natürlich auch so, wie Jimmy gesagt hat, überall wo Kabel in Verwendung sind, können natürlich auch Defekte entstehen, ein Kabel kann kaputt gehen und dann könnte man theoretisch diesen Laser nicht mehr aktivieren. Deshalb ist es für ihn super wichtig, dass er auch die regulären Bedienknöpfe von diesen verbauten elektronischen Elementen auch bedienen kann, ohne da jetzt die Kabel zu verwenden. Deshalb hat er eben den Laser so positioniert, dass er ihn theoretisch mit dem Daumen noch aktivieren kann. Das Kabelmanagement auch eine sehr wichtige Sache, weil die Kabel dementsprechend aufgrund dieser Standardlängen, in denen sie ausgeliefert werden, oft mehrfach irgendwie gewunden werden müssen. Die Kabel dürfen nicht wegstehen, deshalb Kabelbinder, ein bisschen Tape nehmen und das halt so verstauen, dass da ein Kabel nicht wegstehen kann und nicht zu einer Stolperfalle wird.
Let me let you know why that light's on the left side just real quick.
Sure. Well, we forgot to cover that. Yeah.
This thing, hopefully this video doesn't take 8 hours. Apologize, but it's great information we're putting out, I promise you. Okay, so light on the left side. You're asking why, right? First off, I run a vampire head. Why? Because it allows me extra tools in the toolbox for this.
Show it.
For the contingency base, And what I really like about it is, one, I can turn it off. So it basically eliminates the worry of accidentally having a discharge with your white light. But the biggest thing is being able to rotate it over to infrared, right? And if I'm wearing these, the nods here, right, it allows me to search with IR capability if the situation allows me to, without emitting a white light signature. And the reason why it's on the left side is so if I need to rotate, I'm doing it with my support hand, right? Not this hand, because I always want to keep this hand on the gun at all times. So from here, I can just reach from my non-firing hand, I can come right back. I don't want to reach over, right? It's just not, ergonomical. Or take this hand off and rotate, which a lot of guys do if you're right-handed. All right, so it's just something to think about. It's just like those little things, but it doesn't affect my grip. It doesn't affect it at all. So just something to think about.
Also auch ein Grund, warum er das Licht hier auf der linken Seite montiert hat, ist, weil dieser Lampenkopf ein Surefire Vampire Lampenkopf ist mit Infrarotfunktion und der kann über diesen Drehkopf so eingestellt werden, dass er entweder gar nicht leuchtet. Das ist natürlich ein praktischer Vorteil, wenn man jetzt die Befürchtung hat, dass das Licht versehentlich angeht, speziell auch in so einer Situation, wo das Licht eben nicht angehen sollte, um sie nicht von der Position zu verraten, ist es wahrscheinlich besser, wenn man den Lampenkopf komplett abdreht. Das heißt, selbst wenn man am Knopf ankommt.
And that's running with the Unity gas can.
Hat auch einen speziellen Geissele hinten von Unity-Technik, also dieser Anschalter. Und man kann es eben komplett abdrehen, man kann es auch auf Infrarot schalten oder auf Weißlicht und das funktioniert eben über diesen drehbaren Lampenkopf. Und Jimmy hat gesagt, für ihn ist es eben wichtig, dass er diesen Lampenkopf bedient mit seiner linken Hand, weil die rechte Hand immer am Griff der Waffe bleiben sollte. Deshalb hat er es hier links montiert, dass er es einfach so verdrehen kann und nicht wie auf der rechten Seite dann mit der anderen Hand und den Griff an der Waffe dadurch verliert. Deshalb eben hier links verbaut.
And under stress, all that stuff becomes very much more difficult. That's why I try to make short movements.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tell us about the tape. Why is it there?
This tape is called Camoform, I believe. And it used to come standard in a lot of the gun accessories, especially I think the M110 was one of the first guns that advertised all the Camoform that came part of like some of the extra materials that came with it. And it was just such a hit because you guys could wrap up their guns with it. A lot of it was when we started doing the cold weather stuff, and it just eliminated, skin to like metal contact, especially if you're going to move your rifle around. But one of the biggest things is for a lot of the guys that don't really shoot with gloves on or holes in their gloves, and they start to get hot over time. This helps with that. And it also helps with the switches, keeps them from coming off, especially the older switches. This is the Unity switch here, but the old Army switches before, it was just like a piece of Velcro that you would stick on, and that's just, it didn't work. But you'd wrap it up with Camoform, and it was good to go. And it's reusable. Like, I think I've used this one like quite a few times. It's brilliant. It's brilliant stuff.
So it looks quite similar like these things from the medic pack.
Yeah, the Cobain, after IV. Yeah, it's a little bit more robust than that. I think it's a company out of Iowa or something, a real small town. But yeah, Camoform is the name.
Okay. Der Grund, warum er hier Tape hat, ist einfach auch als Schutz vor Temperatureinflüssen, speziell Kälte, wenn man da eben ohne Handschuhe an der Waffe arbeitet, dass das nicht einfach mehr oder weniger einen einschränkt in seiner Bewegung. Es ist bequemer und hilft auch, diese ganzen Kabelschalter und Kabeln so zu verstauen, dass die nicht irgendwie weghängen. Und wenn die Waffe halt wirklich heiß geschossen ist, speziell hier auch im Bereich des Gasblockes, wird das dann schon wirklich mega heiß. Und ohne Handschuhen ist das dann natürlich auch ein gewisser Verbrennungseffekt, der entstehen kann. Und deshalb auch einfach hier dieses Tape. Ist ähnlich wie so ein Medizintape, aber halt noch einmal robuster. Gibt es sicher in anderen Farben auch und damit kann man sich das so rumwickeln. Talking about the handguard in general, what do you have here? Like, is it a Geissele M-lock thing?
Yeah, so the handguard itself is an M-lock.
Yeah.
I've seen it all, man. I've seen it to where it was the old, where the handguard separated from the
two parts, the
two
knights,
parts, that one.
or S, or how it's
and then it went from that to the quad rail.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Defense came out with the wrist 2. And it was just basically like something that was fixed to it to allow a free floating barrel. And then from there was the key mod.
Yeah.
And then after key mod came the M-lock. And that's pretty much where we're at. And I think M-lock is pretty standard.
Superior to all these
But there was also, it's underrated. Troy Industries came out with their handguard. And that was pretty unique.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually,
the one with the holes, right?
Yeah, it's actually right here. The box is, but this Bad Johnson here, it was a good one. But yeah, so we're at M-lock now, and you're probably going to ask me which one do I prefer?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like the key mod.
Really?
It was much easier to put stuff on and take stuff off. The M-lock, you just have to be a little bit more finicky with it. But the M-lock does offer a little bit more, like if you need that extra little millimeter, to the forward or back position, you could get that with the M-lock. But for ease of putting stuff on and off, the key mod was, I thought, just a little bit easier.
Ja, also Handschutz, alle möglichen Varianten, die er schon gesehen hat, von zweiteiliger Picatinny-Handschutz bis ganzer Picatinny-Handschutz, Key-Mod, M-Lock. Er hat den Keymode eigentlich so als angenehmsten empfunden, wenn es darum geht, Dinge zu montieren. Heutzutage ist so ziemlich alles auf M-Block aufbauend. Es gibt eine unglaubliche Vielfalt an Anbauteilen, die man drauf machen kann. Aber Jimmy hat auch gemeint, es gibt natürlich auch andere Montagelösungen wie von Troy Industries mit diesen runden Löchern, der auch ganz cool ist, aber ist an sich gegen die Macht von M-Block eigentlich schwer ranzukommen, weil halt so ziemlich alles auf diesem Standard heute aufbaut. Und der Handschutz, den wir hier drauf haben auf der Waffe, ist ein Geissele Handschutz und das ist auch der behördlich damals auch verwendet wurde zu seiner Dienstzeit bei den Green Berets. So Jimmy, the grip and the hand stop, what's about that?
Yep, so hand stop, same thing, huge evolution of that. And this is kind of where I'm at, and I'm pretty sure I've used them all for the most part.
Like this
like
broom handle ones?
Yeah. I remember like the first one was the Knight's Armament one, where it was black and you unscrewed the bottom, and this came out and slid it on and off, and then after that was the tan one. But yeah, so we're here right now, and this is the irregular defense hand stop. It also has the barricade stop up front. I really like this one. It has a very aggressive stippling. It almost looks like it's a 3D print, but this thing is super strong, and this aggressive stippling or grip that this thing has is just, man, it grabs the gloves, it grabs your hand, and you could beat this thing up. It's pretty nice. I really like it. So this is kind of like my favorite right now.
Yeah.
This is a regular defense.
From your experience, they started with the vertical ones, then they shifted to this angled one from Magpul.
The AFG.
That one.
That one. Yeah. I got a bunch of them. Some of the old ones.
Is there anything you want to tell us about what you've experienced over the years when it comes to these grips? Nobody nowadays is gripping the gun like this. They're now doing the C-clamp kind of style.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with not shooting it. I mean, hell, that's how I started. Okay. I would say one that was pretty cool was Magpul came out with the first one, the RVG, and that was for your actual quad rail. And what was cool about that length was perfect. A lot of things. One, not only it acted as we call it broomsticks, right? Yeah. So you could pull the gun into your shoulder. So that was one benefit. But when you're going up and over ladders, you could essentially, like, say if this was your ladder, right? You could hook the gun on and actually like pull that gun back into you and actually take some pretty stable firing platforms. While holding on here, you just hook the gun and pull it into it and keep it pretty sturdy. That was another thing also with the broomstick, when you would lay the gun on the side on top of a barrier. So if this was your barrier, laying the gun on the side, you could come up and over with this hand and basically firing it, with the gun laying down. So that was kind of unique. But yeah, and it's evolved into like the key mod variant of it, which was this one.
Also available as
the MDG, And then Unity had one for the M-Lock. That's pretty nice. I think that one's still available. But yeah, I just went to this one, and you can still do most of that stuff with this. Yeah. But I really like how it's integrated with the barricade stop.
The barricade stop, what's the reason for that one? Push it against the barricade?
Yeah, absolutely. One, it just keeps, you can just come up and ram it right into position, because a lot of things too, if I don't have contact with this is a lot of problem too, is like when guys are shooting barricades, like they'll rest the barrel on it, and then as they're like leaning down onto it, the barrel is actually kind of bending with those free floats, and the rounds will actually change trajectory a little bit. So having this barricade stop, it's like a good point of reference, right? So on my left side, I'll just jam the flashlight into it. And it's just fine. And I think on the left side, I just use my hand or whatever. But it's a great little tool. Keeps you from beating the gun up a little bit. It's also a great reference point. Yeah. Because under stress, man, people just start doing really funny stuff, But stress makes you do really dumb stuff.
Ja. So, um es nochmal zusammenzufassen, das, was Jimmy vorhin gesagt hat mit diesen Vordergriffen, gibt es natürlich auch unterschiedliche Trends, wie er auch vorhin erklärt hat. Es hat angefangen mit diesem Knight's Armament, Broom Handles, also Besenstielgriffen, die man halt auf den Schienen verschieben konnte. Dann waren halt verschiedene von Magpul da und auch diese schrägen Magpul-Vordergriffe und. Er verwendet den von Irregular Defense, dieser amerikanischen Firma mit einer sehr aggressiven Textur und auch einem gewissen Winkel, wo man die Waffe halt schön greifen kann, plus diesen Barrikadenstopper, um die Waffe halt auch bei Barrikaden wirklich gut in Position bringen zu können. Das, was er vorhin auch erzählt hat über diese längeren Griffe, wie zum Beispiel diesen Magpull-Griff, den kann man halt auch super in Kombination mit gewissen Hindernissen verwenden, wo die Waffe bei einer Leiter, wie es ja vorhin schon gesagt hat, schön einhaken kann, an sich ranzieht und dadurch eine stabile Schießposition aufbauen kann und. Oder auch beim Schießen über Barrikaden verwenden kann. Also sehr, sehr viel Details, ja, und das ist schon wirklich interessant auch so zu hören. Going now in the middle part of the rifle, you have backup iron sights in 45-degree position. When I see it from the perspective of customers, most of the people, they are drawing them off the gun after they have a main optic or whatever.
If we're talking about a fighting rifle, right, and you want to actually hit somebody at 300 meters, and you just throw away the iron sights and your sight goes down, well, now make that shot. You're not going to make that shot. So there's a reason why those are. I mean, I grew up in the Army, like shooting iron sights, so I got pretty good at it. And there's a lot of units out there. You start shooting iron sights before you even get a red dot. You get really good at it. And if we're talking about a contingency-based rifle, right? If this goes down, how else are you going to engage somebody? Well, it's iron sights. Iron sights don't take batteries. They're relatively like they don't weigh anything. And then when they're at a 45, you can have them up. I mean, like I said, having my hand over here, I can reach right over and flip that bad Johnson up. And now I mean, you can run them in the up position. So if this goes down, boom, 45, take your shot. Just to remind everybody, a contingency-based rifle is exactly that. This goes down, now what are you going to do? You know what I mean? So there's a reason. These are steel iron sights. They're from Knight's Armament. I think it was Jerry Barnhart that helped the initial design. He's a super awesome shooter. Well, Sheriff Barnhart, if he's out there, if he's listening, I'm sending my greetings to you. They're super sturdy. You can beat the hell out of these. And a lot of people don't know these little inserts in the back, the old peep sights. So if you take it out, that's essentially in day mode, they call it, right?
Yeah, with a bigger hole and a smaller hole.
Yeah, or night mode, sorry. And then when you put it in, it's day mode. But the smaller the hole, the more accurate you get. So I leave it in, and I can take 300-meter shots all day long. And honestly, shooting at a 45-degree angle, it's much more cumbersome, right? Or sorry, in a good way. Because that buttstock, especially if you don't have like a, my shoulder base isn't that as big, but when I turn it at a 45, it just lays all in the arm and it is super comfortable. Even laying down at a prone, I mean, targets all day long. And you're probably asking, well, why is this not back there? Well, I have this here, kind of ran out of some space, but it still does the same job. The smaller you make your sight radius, right? So any micro movement, it's just going to throw it off. So the longer you run it out, the better it is.
So it would actually be better to have it all the way back.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. This one, it's pretty good, and it works just fine. And you can see here, I take the paint marker, I mark it, so in case it rolls over, I do that with everything. It's marked on my laser.
So these witness marks, they are like mandatory.
Yep, and it's just like, I mean, anything can go wrong, man. It sits in the car and... the groceries get tossed in there. The yogurt spins the dial a little bit, but no. But I mean, in all honesty, it's a contingency-based rifle. If this goes down, what are you going to do? You're not hitting nothing at 300 meters without iron sights. And batteries die, because that's a pretty realistic problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You forget to turn it on. That's a very realistic problem. I've seen that numerous times. Or it's too dim, or it's too bright. You know what I mean? Based off the lighting conditions, right? You can immediately just transfer over that. It gets the job done just fine.
Iron Sights definitiv eine Berechtigung auf diesem Einsatzgewehr, wenn man sozusagen mag, als Backup-Lösung, falls die Hauptoptik durch was auch immer nicht funktioniert, wenn die Batterie aus ist, zu hell, zu dunkel. Also alle Möglichkeiten, die hier passieren können mit der Optik, warum die nicht funktioniert, die gibt's. Und deshalb hat Jimmy auch Iron Sights auf der Waffe im 45-Grad-Winkel, einfach um die Waffe dann, wenn man sie braucht, einfach einzudrehen und dann so zu verwenden. Es ist natürlich auch so, dass hier die Distanz zwischen Frontside und Rearside, also vorne und hinten, länger sein sollte, idealerweise, um dadurch eine höhere Präzision zu erzielen und auch das dem Schützen.
The camera is too hot.
It's too hot for this information.
Too hot to handle, yeah.
We need to take a little break. Right?
Ja. Wichtig ist auch zu sagen, dass hier der Abstand zwischen Front und Rear, also vorne und hinten, möglichst weit sein sollte, und je länger diese Visierlinie ist, desto besser ist es natürlich auch präziser zu schießen, beziehungsweise desto mehr verzeiht das Gewehr einem irgendein Verkanten. Im Fall von diesem Setup ist es gezwungenermaßen weiter vorne montiert, weil hier hinten einfach kein Platz ist aufgrund der Hauptvisierung. Aber im Großen und Ganzen eine absolut sinnvolle Sache, Backup Iron Sights zu haben. Sie sind ja auch Backup Sights, sie sind ja nicht die Hauptvisierung, sondern ein Backup. Und hier haben wir auch Knights Armament Club Visiere, also sehr, sehr hochwertige. Jimmy markiert sich hier auch diese ganzen Einstellungen von seinem Zero, um halt sicher zu gehen, falls das irgendwie doch verdreht werden sollte, warum auch immer, dass man halt hier immer seinen Ausgangspunkt hat. What else do you have on the handguard mounted? I've figured out you have here some kind of sling attachments.
Yep, so you have the black Trident sling keeper and this mag pull for the quick detach.
Yeah.
So the black Trident sling keeper, it's really cool, super clever, very simple. One, it helps keep the chemoform down, and it does help with cable management. So if you're running, like I was running the GBRS mount, which is a fantastic mount, but when the cables came down, actually using the sling keeper to help manage the cables. So it works kind of both ways. But it's nice to have that sling in a stowed position when you're in a car or a vehicle and you're just grabbing it out in a hurry. It keeps it in that stowed position.
Like here,
and then from there, you just pull it and throw it around your neck and get to business.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you have this Magpul QD attachment.
Yep.
I mean, the handguard itself, this Geissele handguard, also has it right
It
integrated.
does, absolutely.
But why do you have it still here?
So for two reasons. One, the traffic right here, the stow, is pretty serious. So with that, bring this up and out, because a lot of times this QD is inside of this this cutout on the Geissele rail. It doesn't really allow it to rotate. It's kind of like stuck in this position and gets caught up on this actual like sling keeper piece. And I brought it out, so it's just much easier to get to if I want to take it off, right? And it allows it to articulate much better on that Magpul mount. And being at the 45, it's just it works perfect, and it's behind my hand. That's the key thing. I don't have it in front of my hand where my hand gets wrapped up in it. It's anchored in behind my hand.
Also Jimmy verwendet hier eben diese Sling-Montage also Magpul RSA Rail Sling Attachment heißt das Ganze, um diesen Anknüpfungspunkt vom Riemen weiter hier raufzusetzen, um den Riemen auch leichter zu entfernen und halt nicht hier in dem Bereich vom Handschutz, wo halt viel Bewegung auch passiert bei einem dynamischen Schießen, dass das halt nicht im Weg ist. Und den Black Trident Sling Keeper auch, um diesen Riemen hier schön zu verstauen, damit er schön nah an der Waffe drauf ist, um da jetzt nicht irgendwie im Weg zu sein, wenn das Ganze auch etwas hektischer wird und dadurch halt wirklich nah bei der Waffe ist. Plus, der hat halt auch einen Nebeneffekt, dass er hier dieses Tape auch schön in Position hält. Dadurch,
Cable Management, ja.
Genau, Kabelmanagement bei einer anderen Montage, die er vorhin verwendet hat, hat er auch hier diese ganzen Lampenkabel unter diesem Sling Keeper durchgeführt und dadurch besser verstauen können. Would you consider this as wrong if you mount it up here?
It's not wrong. It's not wrong by any means. It's just my shooter preference, because I'm a very dynamic rifle shooter, and when I'm switching from side to side, I can just move around the rifle much faster with the sling back behind my support hand, whether it's my right or left.
Er montiert sich den Riemen halt auch vom Montagepunkt hier mittig und nicht ganz vorne, einfach weil er sehr dynamisch schießt und dadurch auch das Seitenwechseln von links auf rechts einfacher ist, wenn der Sling hinter der greifenden Hand ist. Talking about the sling you have mounted here, the sling with just paracord. Yeah, why not a QD?
Okay, so with this was like an old trick. This 550 cord is gutted, it's tied with a square knot, and it has 2 half hitches, and it's cut and burned. All right, that's like one of the best ways to secure it, and it's double wrapped through the sling. All right, so when you're doing a lot of this like dynamic gunfighting and you're switching the buttstock from basically one shoulder to the other. So when I go from one side to another, so if I'm here and I come to the other side, it maneuvers around my body much
Just
better.
show it into the camera so we can see it. Yeah.
Yep. So if I'm here, right, and I'm coming to the actual other side, it keeps it from getting, I can just grab it and put it in that side. So a lot of times I was having issues with is when it was in the QD mount there, it would get kind of wrapped up and you'd almost get this like choking thing going on if you didn't have your sling adjusted right. Because most of the time when the rounds start cracking or whatever, generally speaking, you're probably in the sling, right? And then, right before the gunfight or the hairs on your arms start to stand up, first thing I do is I come out of the sling. So now I can be much more dynamic and reactive to whatever Murphy throws at me. But that's generally the whole reason. It just slings a lot better, swivels a lot better from side to side.
This is a 2-point sling.
Yes, it is.
Preferably a 2-point or 1-point, or
I would say preferably a 2-point, because I feel like I can do a lot more with it, especially when I'm trying to stow it. If I gotta, put it on my back, carry a casualty, climb a ladder, at 2 points on the rifle, I can cinch it down. There is some tricks you can do with a single point. You can basically make something on your kit to where the barrel goes into, or you just wrap like a piece of Velcro up and around this, lock it in place. But if I'm just like wearing what I got now, with this helmet here, it's just a lot easier with a 2-point sling.
Okay.
And then, there's other things you can do. Like with the 2-point sling, I can take this off and use it as a sling for my arm if you get shot in the arm or whatever. Which I have seen that in real life.
Okay, also 2-Point Sling, wie Jimmy vorher gesagt hat, er erlaubt halt mehrere Möglichkeiten auch neben dem Tragen der Waffe, dass man das halt für andere Sachen verwenden kann. Die Befestigung hier hinten mit diesem Cord ist deshalb, weil die Waffe dann auch beim Seitenwechsel nicht so, dass der Sling halt nicht so im Weg ist und sich verheddert oder ähnliches. Der erlaubt halt viel flexiblere Bewegungsmöglichkeiten in Bezug aufs Waffenhandling.
Yeah.
Talking about the optic, what do we have here?
Okay, so we got the EOTech. It's like I think the newest one right now. Why the EOTech? So I was a huge fan of aim points.
Yes.
I think that was the first red dot I used in the Army, was the M68.
Yeah, the old
and now,
one.
And then they got down to I've seen so many variations of them, but those things are bomb-proof, and it's a great sight, don't get me wrong. Yeah, honestly, I wanted to try something a little bit different, and EOTech's, it's a bigger window. There's been some issues with EOTechs in the past, like the model before this, like the battery terminals coming off, like especially the SOCOM issue one. There was a lot of issues with that, and there was issues with especially during temperature changes. I don't know if you remember. I think there's lawsuits involved with that.
Yeah.
But now all that's in the past. This is a much better design, bigger window, for the NVGs to grab something out of it. I think the other big reason, a lot of people don't think about this, but it's this NV button.
The night vision one.
Yeah, so it's right here. I'm on the back side of it. I like how the buttons are on the left side. I'm a right-handed shooter, and once again, reaching up with my support hand. And hey, it just got, super dark, whatever, just reach up, hit the NV button, and boom, and it goes right to that setting. And I really like that. On the aim point, I'd have to reach over, and dial it down, manually dial it down, and it's good, don't get me wrong. I'm just getting really nitpicky, but just to be able to run up and boom, hit that NV button. And I'm surprised that no one came out with a sight yet that can just automatically adjust. Like the RMR HD can do it, and where the sensor is, it's in a much better spot. But that's the way to go. Or something with a remote capability, so you can just hit it with your hand. And I mean, that's the gold ticket. So whoever's out there, listening to this, see if you can develop, integrate it with the switch here, you're onto something, because then you can just adjust your reticle remotely. But then again, more wires. So it's just got to be without wires, all right?
Wireless.
Yeah, but 100%. It's a good sight.
Yeah. Talking about your service time back in the days in the Army and especially in the Special Forces, which sides have you used? Yeah,
so I have a couple of them here. I've used the M68, the T1, the T2, all the variants of the EOTech. Here's one of the variants here. And then this variant as well. That was most of it. And then the pistol red dots, which is a whole slew of those. I don't know. I'm really digging this. I'm not like totally sold on it, but it's good. And I'm running it on a Unity riser right now. And there's a whole talk about risers. I watched the whole evolution of risers. When we had our carrying handles, we were putting the 68s on top of that. So that was already a super high riser. So when the GBRS mount came out, it was like, oh, I remember this, you know. And then we started dropping the sights back down closest to you can to the bore, because it's much easier for your ballistics. Now we're starting to go back up again. So it's like this. It was a legitimate roller coaster ride of,
of the heights.
Of heights over bore.
So why do you have it elevated? Because of shooting NVGs, or
Yeah,
why?
I would say that, but it keeps my head in that neutral neck, neutral shoulder position. So as I bring the gun up, I'm not like changing my head. A lot of guys are like dipping their head down to the gun, but when I bring my gun up to my head, it doesn't change that neutral neck, neutral shoulders. And why, like when you start looking at a physical perspective, like if I can keep my head upright, what happens? You could take in more O2, and what does that do? Under stress, being able to take in more O2 to stay like mentally focused of what's going on, you could take in more information. And I can see more to my right, to my right and my left out of my periphery. But you start cutting off that airway, those are the toilet paper tubes, we call it, start to dial in, and you really lose a lot of that situational awareness. So it's important to keep that head up, man.
Ja, der Grund, warum er hier auch diesen Riser verwendet bei seinem EOTech, ist auch einfach, dass man von der Schießposition möglichst gerade bleibt, und so wie er es ja vorher erklärt hat, ist durch diese gerade Kopfposition auch eine viel bessere Wahrnehmung einfach so zustande kommt, plus halt auch mehr Sauerstoff in den Körper oder in den Kopf reingeht, deshalb ein bisschen mehr Situations-Awareness. Deshalb eben auch die Verwendung von Riser, weil es einfach komfortabler ist zum Schießen, eben in dieser aufrechten Position und nicht halt in dieser geduckten Haltung. Ja. Und der Grund, warum man das EOTech hier auch drauf hat, ist einfach, weil er es ausprobieren möchte, gerade eben auch aufgrund des höheren Sichtfensters. Und damals in seiner Dienstzeit hat er halt auch EOTechs gehabt und Aimpoints, und die EOTechs hatten teilweise auch ein paar Probleme mit Temperatur. Shifts, also bedeutet bei unterschiedlichen Außentemperaturen war dann halt die Haltepunkte nicht mehr so, wie sie eingestellt waren, und hat es dann Abweichungen gegeben, also ein paar Dinge, oder auch mit Batteriedeckeln. Aber es hat sich auch alles geändert. EOTech wurde dann von L3 eben verkauft, hat einen neuen Eigentümer, und dann sind viele Sachen auch teilweise besser geworden, und hier haben wir auch ein größeres Sichtfenster, was speziell auch für 80 Gerät Schießen einfach besser ist.
I go from a bright room to a really dark room and vice versa. Like I said, I can reach right up and activate this NV, and I think that's pretty sweet.
So you use a magnifier on the...
Yes, yeah, and a couple things, right? So you have the old 3-buys. I think there's one right there. Yeah,
That one?
The EOTech ones. Yeah, really nice ones. That one's up on the Unity mount for the GBRS one. And then Unity came out with this one. It's a 4-buy. And it's relatively the same weight, maybe if not a little bit lighter. It's a flip to center, so I think that's kind of cool. And it's a 4-buy, so it goes right behind the EOTech. You can flip it down, rotate it back down and up. The reason why I like this is because, like I said, 300 meters and in. Try to look at somebody at 300 meters to see if he has a gun or not. It's very difficult. So when you just have like just a little bit of magnification just to recognize something before that situation becomes chaotic, it's really nice to have. And it's detachable. So if you don't want to have it on your rifle, you can keep it in your cargo pocket, pull it out, use it as like a quick little spotting scope or something. So it's very versatile. And if you have the real estate, 100%, you should definitely have one.
Yep.
And this is something that doesn't have to be on the gun all the time, but have it with you, and it comes off very easy.
Ja. Also er verwendet den Magnifier hier auch von Unity Tactical, das ist der 4-fache Magnifier und eine Stufe mehr wie der 3-fache von EOTech. Kann man natürlich in Kombination mit dem Red Dot auch super bis 300 Meter verwenden und speziell auch nicht nur schießen, sondern auch identifizieren. Und im behördlichen Fall ist es natürlich auch praktisch, um zu sehen, ob der gegenüberliegende Teil halt auch eine Waffe hat oder nicht oder ähnliches. Und das ist da natürlich schon wichtig. Plus man hat hier die Möglichkeit, über die Schnellmontage das Ganze überhaupt abzubauen. Also man muss es nicht unbedingt auf der Waffe verbaut haben, man kann es auch mit sich mitführen, so irgendwo in der Tasche. Aber es ist aufgrund der Schnellmontage einfach schnell demontierbar und abmontierbar und dadurch flexibel.
I mean, it's just nice, especially like variant lighting conditions. Sometimes guys get stressed, especially the older we get, and also, all the gas from like the suppressors and stuff, it eats at your eyes a little bit. It tires them out. So, yeah, it's just it's a nice to have, man. Yeah. Especially when you are trying to PID something before you take that shot.
Because you said this is like the do-it-all gun. Why not an LPVO? Because you're not dependent on battery anymore. Why do you have this instead of an LPVO?
I think honestly, I think it's a great question. And the LPVOs, I have ran it Actually ran that Vortex Razor on a different mount, on the area mount. This is now on the zero gravity mount. Fantastic company, fantastic mount, and that's at a higher height over bore. And what that does is allows you, if you have your laser underneath it, the laser doesn't get into the picture.
Yeah.
So going back to your question to why not the LPVO? Hey, it's a great thing, man, and it is 6x magnification. But you know, like I said, if I was to run a longer barrel like that 14.5, I would probably go to the LPVO. But you know, the thing is I don't know. I just think like I would say the biggest thing is when you are using NVGs and you're putting NVGs behind this red dot, you grab this thing so much quicker. Because on the reticle, just because the way it's set up, you can't see that under NVGs. Sure. So there's no way to get your and do like the no IR signature shooting. You can't do that with the LPVO. And I think like some of the new ones, like that what was it, the Night Force, I think the 1-8 or whatever that we started getting issued right before I got out. I think you could actually get your nods behind that and actually see the reticle. But a lot of guys don't think about that stuff, you know. Yeah. Because and then also those LPVOs, they're so far back, you know, so you don't have that shadowing. You can't, you're like holding the rifle like this now to get your nods behind it. Yeah. And like I said, I want to be able to shoot without emitting that IR
What would be with an LPVO and the piggyback solution?
Yeah, you could totally do that, 100%.
Yeah. Why haven't you done it here on this gun?
Why haven't I done that on this gun? Like I said, this is a Murphy gun, man, you know, and I think that I can do more with this setup, you know, like let's just say I'm tired and I don't want to carry all this crap. I could take this off, you know, and really quickly and just work the red dot. I would say that, I mean, the Murphy gun now, if I was to go that longer barrel, why not? I would totally.
So if you would have like this gun set it up in 14-inch or something like that, you would take the LPV.
Absolutely, because now that length of that Vortex Razor, you can get like a 1-10 in that size. That's old school now, you know, like the Razor, the new Razor 1-6, it's much shorter than that. I think 1-10s are like that size now.
Yeah,
you know, a 14.5-inch barrel, but I mean,
bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Well, why not go 6-arc, you know, and keep the barrel short?
Yeah, that's the scope.
Yeah. Just say.
Yeah. So EOTech combination on that 11.5-inch.
Yeah.
In terms of manipulations, we have the grip, we have safety, we have charging handle, we have trigger. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is the standard Geissele one that comes with the Super Duty. The actual name for this,
supercharging handle.
Yep, the supercharging handle. Thank you. I am really terrible about acronyms and all these names of all this stuff because I've seen it all these years. But the supercharging handle, I love this one. It's awesome, especially when, like I said, dynamic shooter working with it, my right hand, left hand, I can manipulate it from both ways. I did add the mag pull bad lever, and that's just so I can index the mag, the bolt catch rather, to let that thing go forward quicker during my combat reloads with my shooting hand. I like that thing, and it's fairly cheap, and you can just bolt it right on.
Yep. Have you used that one in service as well?
Yes, I did. Yeah, 100%. There was another one too, Phase 5. Yeah, they make it cool, and that's a fixed one, and that one's actually really nice because there's none of this like rocking play motion there. The trigger stock with the Super Duty.
It's a Geissele trigger, so it's a high-end trigger.
Yeah, but I would say even our old service rifles, we had the Geissele.
Super Select Fire.
That one, really great one. Anytime you start polishing steel and all that stuff, oh man, it just shoots so much better because we're all used to those old Army Colt triggers. Those are just terrible, man. Yeah. But so ambi selector once again.
Sorry to interrupt. Is this something you would recommend to anyone who has a rifle to upgrade the trigger to a match trigger or a better trigger?
No, I would always say if this is a contingency-based gun, you shouldn't be running around with race gun triggers. No. The reason why I say that is, let's just say you are in a stressful scenario and you're already on semi, and next thing you know, you fall down and stuff like that. You don't want these hair triggers. I mean, I would say like a 3-pound or something is good, but I think Geissele kind of set the standard for that.
It's a match-based trigger, but combat.
It is. Yeah. It breaks really clean. It's nice. It's good quality steel, and it doesn't take much, but it's also safe enough if you get into a punch 'em up with somebody, you don't have to worry about that thing going off. And then ambi selector for obvious reasons, dynamic gun, dynamic fighting.
But I think this is also personal preference.
It is, because I mean, especially if you know what you're doing, you can totally manipulate the selector lever with both hands if it's just a one-sided one. As far as the pistol grip, this is a regular defense. If you guys notice this like 90-degree angle here, it's really interesting, and it's nice and fat here, so it fills that space in the hand. So as soon as you grab this thing, it automatically like takes this elbow and wants to kick it into your side, and that's good, right? Because it provides that stable platform. But as you're doing it, like the space of your hand opens up, and that's why it's so wide here, and it fills it up perfectly, and it's really nice. Very sturdy grip too.
Yeah. Which grips you have used in your service?
Yeah, the mag pulls, the
Ergos.
The Ergo ones. These are kind of cool too, just because you could hide like your extra 1, 2, 3 batteries, or just batteries in general, or like sensitive items or something. The secret map to some treasure.
Chocolate bars.
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of cool, but the angle was different. Especially like doing a lot of this fighting from up here and whatnot. That's much better.
Okay.
So we were talking about the H2 buffer. A lot of guys will swap them out and put in hydraulic buffers. Hey, those are like comfort items. I think those are, I don't know, something I'd put more of like a precision rifle, but I would just run the stock buffers, because you can get some issues with that stuff, especially the actual spring. Like the Geissele, it's a braided buffer spring, so we had to take it down like the single coil one.
Yeah, because it's set up for very strong
specific ammo, absolutely. Going back from that, this is the Magpul CTR. Really like these, always big fan of these. I think these have been around like probably the longest with Magpul. Pretty sure this is like one of their first ones, wasn't it?
Pretty
CTR.
much, yeah.
And then, what I like about that is just like it's very fast, to put in position,
lightweight as well.
And then from there, the cheek risers. This is a GBRS one. I know Regular Defense is making them as well. But this combination of the cheek riser puts that, at least for me, keeps that face up in the that neutral neck, neutral shoulder position, to where I'm looking straight down through that EOTech.
Yeah. If you would have an optic without riser, would that interfere with the riser of the cheek? Yeah.
And you don't need this. I mean, you could make it with other things, like a whole army tape and like, putting some cardboard in there, like that we used to do on the sniper rifles. That was the thing. But what's also unique with this, when I flip up my 4x, what's nice about this, I just rock my jaw forward a little bit, and it like fits right in this groove. And I'm like right at the perfect
eye distance.
The eye relief on this, because if you get too far away, you get that shadowing going on. But it puts me right in that perfect, and it's backed up all the way. So it's kind of use that as a reference, which is pretty nice. Yeah. As far as the back of it, it's pretty robust. You can this thing can take a beating, especially if you're fixing a malfunction. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's very robust. Yep. And I think that's about it on this rifle. Is there something else that you see, Martin? That
so far not. I think we discussed everything from here to here. Yeah. With all the details, with your insights, with your experience, which is really nice. And I hope the people out there enjoy the video. And
I know that's probably a long video for the viewers out there, but I guarantee that everybody has learned something. And thanks for letting me, Martin. Thank you for letting me come here and share this with you. I appreciate it, man.
Ja. Und wenn ihr weitere Videos sehen wollt mit Jimmy, dann lasst es uns wissen, schreibt es gerne in die Kommentare. Wir haben hier einen wirklich top erfahrenen Burschen, der wirklich viel gesehen hat und auch hier in Bezug auf diese AR-Setups einiges erklären konnte. Jimmy hat auch einen eigenen Instagram-Kanal, den blenden wir hier unten ein in die Videobeschreibung.
Yeah, Instagram is Canon_ops.
Ja, folgt ihm gerne für mehr Content aus diesem spezialisierten Bereich hier. Und wir sehen uns dann in weiteren Videos hier auch mit dem Jimmy. So, thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bis bald.
Ja.